Welcome back to Empowered and Unstoppable, the podcast for high achieving women who look successful on paper, but know deep down that something needs to change. I'm your host, Megan Bonnell, life coach, speaker, and recovering overachiever, if I'm being honest. And this is the space, ladies, where we get to stop pretending that burnout and pain and survival mode are just the price of being capable. This is not true. Here's the truth that we don't say often enough, I think. You don't have to be falling apart for something to be wrong. And today's episode is for every woman who has quietly wondered, is this pain just part of getting older? Why does my body feel unsafe? Why does life feel smaller than it used to? Is this just how it's going to be? Do I have to live with this?
Welcome to Empowered and Unstoppable, the show where high-achieving women crush self-doubt, ditch imposter syndrome, and step boldly into their greatness. I'm your host, Megan Bonnell, and together we'll unlock the mindset, strategies, and confidence you need to create unstoppable success on your terms. Let's dive in.
And ladies, this is an episode I have been waiting for so long to record because I'll be honest with you, this conversation isn't just professional for me, it's personal. I have lived in a body that has carried pain for most of my life, and I know what it's like to be told everything looks fine or there's nothing specific we can fix. Some people just live in pain. And so today's conversation to me matters not in a theoretical way, but in a real lived way as it does for our guests. So we are going to be challenged on this episode, or we're going to challenge, I suppose, what we've been told to accept and what we're actually capable of changing. So I want you to lean in because my guest today is here to tell you something very clearly. Pain is not a life sentence, not physical pain, not emotional pain, not the pain of transition or loss or rebuilding. No pain is a life sentence. And if you have ever felt dismissed, misunderstood, or told just to live with it, excuse me, this conversation is going to feel super deep for you. So let me tell you who we get to talk to today. My guest today is somebody that I deeply respect, not just for what she knows, but for how she truly embodies it. She has spent over 30 years in the world of physical therapy and pain science and human healing. And if you know anything about healthcare, you know that kind of longevity only happens when someone is both brilliant, which she is, and incredibly deeply committed, which she also is. She is a national board certified health and wellness coach, a fellow of pain science, and a certified positive intelligence coach. This is just such a mouthful. I love it. And all of that means that she understands pain, not just from the body, but in the brain, the nervous system, the lived human experience. She also, along with her private practice, which I'm sure she'll talk about, she's the program director for lifestyle medicine certification at Evidence in Motion. And that's where she helps shape how healthcare professionals across the world think about healing, not through outdated fear-based models, but through evidence and compassion and empowerment. But with all of that, here's what I actually love the most about her. She doesn't teach from theory alone. She has walked through chronic pain. She has navigated incredibly difficult situations in her life, and she has rebuilt her confidence, her identity, her life using the same tools that she uses with her clients. Isn't that nice that they actually work for her too? She believes pain is information, that healing is possible, and she believes that we always have a choice, ladies, more than we even think, even when life feels overwhelming. So I am genuinely thrilled to introduce to you Jen. And Jen, I'm going to let you say your last name so that we say it correctly.
Jen Uschold with a short U.
Uschold. So Jen, welcome to the show. I am so excited that you are spending time with us today. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for that intro. That was a very humbling intro. And I really would like to start by saying, on behalf of every single person who said, you're fine because your scans look fine, I apologize. And I would like you and all of your listeners to know very confidently right out of the gate that all pain is real. Pain scientists have never, ever scanned fake pain. And what your scans look like, their information, they cannot diagnose pain because pain is much more complex. So
well,
that's
thank you for
how I'd
that.
like to start.
I love that. And I'm sure that that resonated not only with me, but with a lot of the listeners. And I'm very excited to get into the pain piece and the healing and the science and transformation. But before we do that, I always like to start something with something kind of fun because it really helps us pull back the curtain and make your credentials and your brilliance attached to the real human being that you are. So, we are going to ask you a fun question here to start. What is something weird, quirky, or just plain human about you that your clients or your audience may not know?
Well, gosh, there's so much. The first website I ever had, the guy's like, "Hey, I consider you to be quirky and authentic." So that's the vibe we're going for. And I'm like, "Okay, I'll buy." So I come from a very large family and we didn't have a ton of money. And so we were very attentive to not throwing things out. So I have a phrase that the freezer freezes time. And so that you can pretty much put anything in the freezer. And while it might not taste good, it is still edible and we don't want to throw things out. And so I have salmon patties that I haven't figured out what to do with them because I don't like salmon and no one in my house likes salmon anymore. And my partner thinks I'm absolutely crazy. They're at least 8 years old and they're still in my freezer. I could give you a picture if you wanted it. And so then my partner was reading this article where they found a woolly mammoth that had been frozen for, I don't know, centuries or millennia. And you know what? They ate woolly mammoth steak. And it just confirms my theory that freezers freeze time.
Evidence. You have proof right
I
now
do.
that you are correct in your theory. I love
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you for sharing that. We all have our little quirks, and that's what makes us unique and human. And I love that. Okay, if it's okay with you, Jen, we're going to get started a little bit on the personal side so that people can really relate to you and your journey because it's an incredible one. And then we're going to go into like the science of it all, if you're okay with this. So, one thing that I find really striking about your journey is that from the outside, I mean, you heard it, ladies, right? She has all these credentials, the longevity, the expertise, but you have been very transparent about saying internally your confidence didn't always match your incredible capability. And I really do think that a lot of high achieving women listening might be nodding right now to that because so many of us can relate. We've either been there or we are there. So you've been a physical therapist since the early 90s, and yet you shared early on in that journey you struggled with that confidence, especially when your clients' symptoms didn't make sense to you. So can you take us back to that version of you? What was it like helping others while you're still doubting your own voice and your own capabilities?
It really impacted the way I was able to show up for my client. I do believe that if I could go back and give all of my clients from my first 5 years where I didn't have much knowledge and I had almost no confidence, a refund, I would. But I think the client you might be talking about is my very first job, and I was a very green PT, and his symptoms made no sense. And that was part of the reason that I dove into pain science. He was a very nice man. He was in debilitating pain, but no one could tell him why. And, you would touch him very lightly and he would scream in pain. And the weather would change his pain and his stress would change his pain. And I'm like, this makes no sense. But
Mm-hmm.
I still did the best I could to connect with him and be kind and give him what I knew. And that really lasted. And I just kept having clients. And that was what made me really do the deeper dive into pain science so that I could learn how to help people. And honestly, I'm teaching a pain science course right now, and the students are saying things like, well, I just don't know enough. And I'm like, I still don't know enough. There are still clients who I get it right, and there are clients who I really need to reframe and try again. And so that's part of that journey. And the confidence, I've never had confidence. And I realized that yes, it's mine to own. And also I lived in an environment where my confidence was being battered down for decades. And I'm really lucky to be here because when I started teaching pain science, it wasn't going well. And two people actually were like, we don't think Jen should keep on this path. And luckily, my boss, he's like, he just gave me a call. He's like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. He's like, you know this, you can do this. And it was his confidence in me that helped me realize I need to finally show up as confident as in myself as everybody else already is in me.
I love that. So much. I feel like that can go far beyond your specific circumstances because there are so many times that people, but especially us as women, I think really do lack that confidence. And yet everyone around us is thinking, how in the world could you not be? You know, you're amazing, you're great at this, you're wonderful, you're incredibly valuable, and yet we don't feel it. And I love that idea of riding on their confidence because yes, you can. And yes, you are capable. And yes, you are amazing. And even if you don't believe it, you can act the way they see you. And that does wonders for us. I think that's beautiful. So aside from his confidence in you, was there anything else that finally allowed you to stand tall and proud and strong as you, or was that really the turning point?
Oh no, this is weird. My getting divorced has been the biggest boost in my confidence because that was an unfortunate environment that I was in. And it's unbelievable to me what I have accomplished since getting divorced and getting out from under that shell.
We are actually going to talk about that specifically because I love something about that situation. But I don't want to lose this question that just popped up in my head. What shifted in you from that allowed you to stop hiding, stop playing small, and actually allow yourself to take up this space that you're taking up now?
Yeah, that's a great question without an easy answer.
I
And
know, I know.
my new framework for helping people understand pain is with the complexity of a cookie. It's not one ingredient that makes a great cookie, and we have to consider all these variables. So it wasn't one thing that got me to where I am today. Um, I had a great counselor, and the moment I realized that I needed to step out of the marriage, that was one of a million steps. And I was dedicated to the work that I do. I started to integrate what I use with my clients to navigate my own divorce. And that made a huge improvement. And I started allowing myself to receive feedback rather than just, oh no, no, thank you, oh, you're wrong, etc. And I think those are three big pieces of what helped me transition to where I am now.
I love that. I love that. And that's actually the piece of your divorce that I wanted to talk about because this is where what you do, maybe being theoretical, really became embodied by the same person that's delivering it. You didn't just teach it, you had to live it in one of those hardest seasons that you've been through. And I know that you have stated that divorce was that defining chapter in your life. And it is, I think, for so many women. So what I find so powerful about that chapter for you is that you did take that professional knowledge and then you used it for personal healing. So, from what I understand, you applied your pain science, your lifestyle medicine, the mental fitness to yourself in that moment. So, can you kind of walk us through like just a little bit about what you did? I know that's probably such a long story, and what that season taught you about pain and identity and choice.
Yeah. Well, it actually has to go back to 1990 when I had this really unknown knee pain. And I ended up having surgery because that's what we do when we have pain. And that surgery was 100% useless, which
Oh,
at the
boo.
time I couldn't understand. Why could I have surgery and have it be useless? But now I understand. And so that pain was with me for decades. And then the divorce started in 2020. And then in the summer of 2021, my middle son was about to start college in Spain, and his dad backed out of taking him last minute. Now, it was COVID, international travel, navigating a contentious divorce. None of these things were awesome, and this is when my knee pain came roaring back. So the pain was there, figured out how to get that trip planned, and I continued to have pain. And then it wasn't until we got through security at the airport where I started to have a little relief. And the reason why is because pain and stress are intimately connected.
Very.
Just getting us to that point in the trip was really quite beautiful. And the challenges continued in Spain. And then at some point I was like, I gotta figure this out. And I realized, all of the things that I use with my pain clients and my coaching clients, I can now apply for myself with the knee pain I was having. And so I did. And that was getting support, realizing I didn't need medications, I didn't need scans because I had the knowledge going in. And then the biggest thing was, where can I find moments of joy and happiness amidst this stress and chaos? And the greatest gift of that trip to Spain that I didn't know I was going on is that I got to be with all three of my kids for the first time in nearly 2 years because my daughter was in Spain in college and stuck there because of COVID. So then, how did I apply this to my divorce? Well, a few months later, we were on our third mediation because the first two were miserable failures. And I
Mhm.
thought, okay, once again, I have to change how I show up. I just cannot do this on rinse and repeat. So I used the pain science, the lifestyle medicine, the mental fitness to prepare for my own mediation. And I was really proud of myself because I had a crazy courageous idea the night before. And what I did was when the judge said, okay, anything else before we went to separate rooms, I stood up and I reached across the table and I looked my kid's dad right in the eye, shook his hand, and said, we can do this. I wouldn't have been able to do that before. So the mediation's going on, it's not going so hot. And then I get this ridiculously poor offer, and I was grounded. I knew what I was going to do because I had prepared using pain science and lifestyle medicine and mental fitness. And so when this metaphorical bomb, so to speak, got dropped, I was able to say to my lawyer and the judge, if this is the hill he wants to die on, I'm okay. I will respectfully walk out. And part of the preparation for that day in particular was I took pictures of the law office. I mapped out the exits. I knew where the restrooms were. And I also created this photo album on my phone called Compassion and Power. And what was in there was pictures of my kid's dad so that I could be comfortable looking at him without fear. So that was how I was able to apply that to the divorce. And the good news is by 5:30 that day, I had a signed agreement and things were not going well.
I love that. I love that. And you know, something that really struck me, this isn't in your words, but you really took control of what you could control. And so often we are just arguing with what is that is completely out of our control and not looking in our little realm of what can we do. Okay, so how can I be comfortable? How can I feel strong? How can I be grounded? How like and I love that you took steps that you can control instead of arguing what's happening, right? Because that will be an argument you lose every single time. So, well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Incredibly
And we
proud
could
of you.
take every word you just said and apply that to someone struggling with pain.
Well, hire me. Let's go. This is going to be great. Well, let's get into the science of it. We'll go, kind of deeper as we go. But something that I appreciate that you say is that healing is rarely one big moment. And I think we all wish it was, right? But honestly, it's both frustrating and relieving. And I think so many of us sit back and we're waiting for this massive breakthrough, whether it's in pain or in some other piece of our life. But real transformation usually happens quietly and over time. And so you've talked about a few pivotal moments in your life so far, talking about, in the counselor's office, receiving unexpected feedback when you spoke at a conference was something that you had mentioned to me, waking up in a home that finally felt safe, post divorce. So, how did those moments collectively reshape your sense of power? And how can we take that lesson to the slow transformation, not a massive one big moment for the audience?
You're listening to another episode of Empowered and Unstoppable. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Are you ready to take your success to the next level? Visit www.meganbonnellcoaching.com.
I think the first important point is the lightning bolts are so rare that let's just assume it's going to be a little step by step approach. And you know what? If you get the lightning bolt, cool, let's celebrate that. That's not how it works for most people. And a big part of the mental fitness framework is celebrating everything along the way. And so, honestly, I had a client this summer. Her pain was so intense that she was crying and screaming pretty much on and off throughout the day. And pacing is a really important strategy. Now, for her, this is what pacing looked like. Her family set it up so that every 5 feet in her house, there was a chair. And was she able to get a lot done? No. The gift for her was that she didn't cry and scream in pain every time she moved. And so, for someone who wants to run a marathon, that sounds ridiculous. For
Mm-hmm.
her, that was a huge win. And I've had other people who literally they have to start with walking 2 minutes. And now I just got pictures a couple weeks ago. She's hiking in Austria. 2 years ago, she was hiking in Budapest. And so appreciating and celebrating every tiny step and also knowing it's not linear. It's not a direct down. What we're looking at is it's more like a roller coaster and knowing how it works, understanding what strategies are best for you, and then choosing which ones to implement.
Yes, yes, and more yeses. And I agree with you that linear path is just rarely how it happens. The lightning bolts are just so rare in how they happen. And so it
Yeah.
really is about celebrating those moments. And what that also gives you is the ability to enjoy the journey instead of waiting for enjoyment at the end, because you're celebrating all the way, which feels incredibly different, obviously, than waiting for it to be done, whatever that is, right? What would you say to a woman who thinks she's still stuck when she's actually already evolving? It's just piece by piece, like you're talking about.
Oh, I love this. So I use this metaphor with my clients is that if you are dehydrated and you chug a glass of water, you're not going to feel better right away. Now, the other point is let's just take a dry sponge. If we drip water into that sponge, it's going to absorb and get the benefit of the water. Versus if we just pour a cup of water on that sponge, a lot of it's going to fly off. And so this just
Mm.
supports the idea of slow and steady and intentional versus bombing it all out there right at once. And so, what I would say is just recognize where you are right now. And one tiny step might be to get a pair of shoes by your bed so you go for a walk in the morning. And that tiny step is completely worth celebrating. And depending on your situation with divorce, sometimes standing still, that's actually a step and worth celebrating because you didn't spiral backwards.
Yeah, I love that metaphor of the sponge. That's a good
Thank
one. That's a good one.
you.
Okay, talking about pain science, something that I learned from you was mind blowing, honestly. But before we get to that, I want to share something personal so that hopefully listeners can kind of relate to that if they're in the same position. So, that pain that I live with that I had talked about earlier, I lived with neck and back pain since I was 16 years old. And that's when, the scans and whatever, they're like, no, everything looks fine. You just live with pain. But hearing that does something to you, right? It makes pain feel permanent, right? It makes you feel like a victim. It teaches you to tolerate instead of understand. It quietly shrinks, I think, your expectations of you and your life, just knowing that this is how it's going to be. So when I see the work that you do, the way that you bring in science and safety and agency back into the conversation, I understand personally why it matters so much, because for so many people, it really isn't about fixing the pain. It's also about reclaiming hope, right? And so, with that context, I would love for you to help us understand the bigger picture that blew my mind. You talked about how healthcare professionals are still operating from a pain model that is nearly 400, yes, I said that correctly, 400, there's two zeros, years old. Can you explain what that means in a way that we can all understand, and why does that outdated model keep people stuck where we are in that fear and avoidance and hopelessness?
Yes. Rene Descartes, philosopher from 370 years ago, he is the one who told us that pain is either in the body and something is wrong with your body, or in your mind and therefore you are crazy. And it's really, that's the simplest approach. And unfortunately, by and large, most humans and clinicians are still operating under that model. Now,
Ugh.
we have to get curious. We think about somebody who has an amputation, that body part isn't there anymore. And so therefore they are crazy. Well, we know they're not crazy.
Mhm.
And thankfully in the 90s, this is when we started learning a ton, when we had CT scans and PET scans, because we could see what was going on in the brain when someone was experiencing pain. And that is how we know that all pain is real. And that older model is very biomedical in nature, like it's
Mhm.
just the biology. But people in pain science, we are approaching this, it's a big fancy word, biopsychosocial, but it's really all of the ologies. And people ask me, are you talking about physical pain or emotional pain? And the truth is, yes, because all pain is physical and emotional. So, an example that I often give my clients is, let's just say you come home, you've had a great day, work was awesome, kids are ready to have a fun night, and you stub your toe. It's gonna hurt. No, you come home and your kids are screaming already. Your boss got on your case about a report that was 1 hour late, and you trip over your kid's backpack and stub your toe. The emotions that are related to those situations are very different, and it's going to impact the pain that you have. For your
Interesting.
football fans out there, if your football team does good on a Sunday, that will impact your pain differently than if your football team flounders.
Oh,
So that is why we have to get this information out there, because most people still believe that where you feel pain is the source of pain. And we can have beautiful scans and debilitating pain. And we also have the opposite. We have scans that would make your head spin. And these people, they're great. They have no problems.
interesting. I love it. I love that so much that you are helping to get out the information that it really is more than just the biomedical part. And what did you say? Biopsycho,
Biopsychosocial.
all the ologies, all the
All
things.
the ologies, yes.
Okay, well, let's get into this a bit. And I know that you could probably talk. I mean, you do, you have entire courses about all of this, but I know that there's women listening right now, me included, who quietly organize their lives and mental state and emotional state and relationships around pain, canceling plans, avoiding trips, playing small, wondering if it's just how it's going to be, right? Even just being in an incredibly dark place because of it. So I would love for you to help me bring this home in a very real way. Normally, this is where I would ask somebody for like tips or tricks or exercises, but I have to assume that this topic is much more individualized and deeper than you saying, oh, here's the 3 steps everybody needs to take, but maybe I'm wrong. But I would love for you to think of those women listening that are so incredibly deeply engaged because they're like, okay, what now? What do you want these women to know or to do? Or I'm not sure. I want to kind of open that up to you. What is it that, what do we do? What do we think? What is it?
I love that question. And I would like to use a story to, I
Mm,
think, give all of them, including you, the most impact.
okay.
We actually do have the research. There are three main things that we need to do to help people overcome pain.
Love it.
And one is education. So think about this just for a moment. If somebody asked you or I to be a cardiothoracic surgeon today, that, right? I don't know if
That
everybody's
person
listening. Your
would die
eyes,
on the table.
her eyes like blew out of her head. And that's because we don't have the knowledge,
Yes.
correct? So
Yes.
now people that are struggling with pain are being asked to navigate pain without the knowledge of how pain works. When I ask people, has anyone ever told you why you hurt? Nope. So education is number one, and that's the story we're going to do. And
Okay.
then in the Empower You framework here, the M is motion is lotion because movement and exercise is critical. And the P is powering down your nervous system. And we have many, many science-backed ways that we can do that.
Okay.
So let's go to a story. You want to play a story with me today, Megan?
Yes. Let's do it.
Excellent. So I'm just curious if you were to step outside and you're barefoot and you step on a rusty nail today, would you want to know?
What would I want to know?
No, would you want to know?
Oh, I would want to know.
Why do you want to know?
I think that it could cause an infection in my body, and it would be helpful to know if I was maybe going to have to do something to not get sick.
Yeah. Can we appreciate that it's information and in this case it's protective? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, super brief introduction to your nervous system. It is your brain, your spinal cord, and 400 nerves. Those 400 nerves are connected like one big highway. So, usually, I'm going to ask you and your listeners, what city or town is 45 miles, if you're international, 72 kilometers away from you right now? Because if we were to lay your nerves end to end, that's how far we could get with the nerves that are
Wow,
inside your body. Crazy, right?
that is crazy.
Now, all of those nerves have a little bit of electricity in them, which tells us we're alive. And now we're going to go back to that nail.
Okay.
When you step on the nail, it is not pain yet because
Okay.
we don't have pain nerves. We don't have pain sensors. All we have are danger sensors. And that information goes to the spinal cord and then to the brain. And if it crosses a particular threshold, that's when you'll have pain. Now,
Okay.
can we agree that your foot might be sore for a few days?
For sure.
And when you feel that soreness, are you causing additional damage?
Probably not. I don't
No.
know. I wouldn't
It's
think
just your
so.
nervous system coming back to baseline.
Yeah.
You know for sure that tissue and tissue damage and pain don't go together because you have beautiful tissues and you have pain.
Yeah.
And so it's coming back to baseline. But here is the challenge. About 1 in 4 people in our country and 1 in 3 worldwide, they don't come back to baseline. So instead of
Mm.
being down here, they're up here, and this leaves so little room. This is, ooh, can I sit through a movie? I don't know. Here, yeah, no sweat. Can I go for a 3 mile run? I don't know. Here, no sweat. So a way I like to describe it is, Megan, if I came to your house today and I chucked a brick through your front window, would you want your house alarm to go off?
Mm-hmm, I sure would.
Yeah, that's smart. And now, what if somebody messed with the sensitivity of your alarm and a leaf hit your window and your house alarm went off?
That would be annoying.
Is your house okay?
Yeah, my house is fine.
So, is it possible that your house, your body is okay? And we need to focus on the sensitivity of the alarm.
Yeah, we need some recalibration there.
Yeah. And so people are often wondering, well, why did my nervous system stay elevated and not my sister, cousin, uncle, whatever? And we know this is more research. They're called yellow flags. There are things in our lives that can raise this sensitivity, even if it's not crossing the threshold. Ongoing
Mm.
pain, very stressful, job issues, family issues, aging parents, other illness, all these different things can raise that threshold. And so the work we do is bringing this back to baseline so that pain goes back to being protective because pain is normal. Living in pain is not.
Love that. And I love the just that word protective because that really is its job. And
Yes.
so that's beautiful. So how, well, hold on. I don't know if you're done yet.
No, that's the end, but can I give you one science fun fact?
Yes. Ready, go.
It's a question. How many pieces of information do you think your brain processes every second? And you just said it, your brain's job is to protect you.
Oh my gosh. Pieces of information. I don't know. I feel like it's got to be in the six figures. If you're thinking about everything around you, no, I don't know. What is it?
11 million. Why do I say this? I say this because it is wise to spend a little bit of time getting curious, right? If somebody is hammering your thumb, let's be curious about that. But if you're feeling devastating pain in your thumb, but no one's hammering it, We really want to focus on what do we know and what are our strategies to get out, because we're never going to figure out those 11 million pieces of information every second.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good metaphor. So, how do people shift from pain to gain, not just physically, but personally and professionally? We do that education and then motion, the movement, the exercise. And what was the P? Remind me of the P.
Powering down your nervous system.
Powering down. What does that look like?
Yeah, there's so many options in there, and it's very cool because this becomes about choice. So you may or may not like yoga, and someone else, may or may not be interested in acupuncture. And so this becomes, what are your goals? What's important to you? What are you interested in? And then that's how we decide what else to integrate. Could be nutrition. Sleep is critical. We need to deal with sleep with everybody. Nutrition, mindfulness, yoga, acupuncture, laughter, journaling, and there's more than a dozen, more than 20.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So with all of that, your E and your P, your E and your M and your P, can you tell us why curiosity, not force, is really your exit ramp if you're looking at changing the way that you're dealing with, living with, experiencing pain?
Okay, your listeners are women. Are most of them parents?
A lot of them, yes.
Yes. So, those of you who are parents, is your child going to respond to something that is their choice or that you have told them and are forcing them to do?
They respond much better to choice.
So, the same is true with your nervous system. It's like a screaming little toddler with pain, and we need to help it understand you have choices and we can calm down.
I love not at all what I was expecting you to say. I use the idea of toddlers though all the time with my clients too, because really our brain untrained is just like a screaming toddler. And so I love that. Well done. Well done.
Is it our brain untrained, or is it when our brain is freaked out in protective mode?
Yes, no, true. Yep.
Or both?
Absolutely.
Probably
Or
both.
both. Yeah,
Yeah, let's go
combination.
with both. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, before I ask you my like final signature question, obviously I came up with kind of what I wanted my listeners to hear, but is there anything else in what you do and what you want them to know that we didn't cover that you think, this kind of is something else that probably should be mentioned?
Yes, because you've had unfortunate experiences with medical professionals in your pain journey. Um, I always make it questions. So my question to you is, how long do you think it takes to develop trust in a new provider?
Oh, so for me, not long. I think that I usually approach things very open-minded as this is another option, and just with hope. But I think seeing other family and friends that have gone through a variety of things in their life, it does take a while because they go with this filter of, I haven't been treated either well, kindly, appropriately. Nobody listens, like nobody cares. And they go into appointments with that in mind. So probably a while.
This blew my mind when I first learned it in the fellowship program. 0.1 seconds. Isn't that
That's it.
mind blowing?
Yes.
So for the clinicians out there, how you show up, your energy, your body language, your actual words, your tone, all of that matters. And for those of you who are seeing a new clinician, trust your gut. If it doesn't
Mm,
feel right, you'll be able to, kind of suss that out in the conversation. But we know that the relationship with the provider has a bigger impact on your progress than the skill of the provider.
interesting. Zero point 0.1 seconds.
Point
That's
one.
beautiful, though. That's beautiful that it can be turned around and that you can be open to what is going to happen, suggestions, whatever, that quickly. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And
I love
remember
that.
that the clinician works for you. So many people are afraid to advocate for themselves and find a new clinician because of shame or guilt, or I don't know what it is. I really encourage you to find a clinician who will listen, validate, and has the knowledge to help you.
That is great advice. Great advice. Well, I'm sold, and I'm sure that so many of my listeners are as well, that You really are offering an approach to all of this with a lot of compassion and obviously a ton of education and experience, and really more of the whole mind and body and life. And so, if they are as sold as I am, where do we go if we want more Jen? So, where can we either get resources or follow you or set up an appointment with you? Or how does that work? How can we get more Jen in our life?
Absolutely. So, curiosity, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. And my website also has resources and descriptions of programs, and that is jenuschold.com. I'm very excited because just in the fall, I released you can't really read it, Pain Less for a Life of More. And what it is it's a deck of 52 cards. And I will give you a link so that your listeners can get a freebie, which is an introduction to it. And then I'll also send you a link if you want it with a 10% off if they want to actually purchase the cards. But there are 6 different topics in there: sleep, education, exercise, social connections, nutrition, and mindset. And it's just a sentence or two. And then if you get the full-blown version, it comes with an ebook and expands to a couple of paragraphs. Just a nice little way to boost your day and help you get one step closer to being painless.
I love that. And thank you for that gift. That is very, very kind. So, if you are listening, all of that will be in the show notes. Please go connect with her on LinkedIn, check out her website. Definitely take advantage of that gift. I'm going to for sure. I love little things like that. It tells my brain what to focus on. And it's crazy because if we tell our brain what to focus on, it will prove us right every single time. And so, if those can help your brain focus in a healthy, mindful, education kind of way, that yes, pain free is a big possibility in your world. I would imagine your brain will go right to work proving that it's true. Oh, Jen's raising her hand.
Pain-free is not the goal
Oh, painless. Sorry, painless.
because
Explain the difference, and I do
yeah,
know
you
that.
don't. There are, I think last I knew, 14 people in the world that have this condition where they cannot feel pain, but they don't live very long. Just imagine you put your hand on a hot stove and you don't feel it. That's a problem.
That's a big
Pain
problem.
is a beautiful gift until it goes overboard. And that's when we have to learn how to chill out the nervous system and recreate
Yes.
safety.
Yes, that is such a good distinction. Thank you. And I knew that. I knew that ahead of time. I'm so glad you were here to correct me. So
All good.
painless. Absolutely. Okay, we always end with this question because I think it has a way of really cutting through all of the noise and everything we've covered. You can always go back and listen again. But Jen, if you could give every woman the gift of a magical sticky note that appears on her mirror in the morning, what would that say?
It would say pain is not a life sentence. Not is all capitalized. And then it would say there are ways for you to become pain less. Dot, 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 for your life of more.
I love that. I hope I don't mess this up. Pain is not, all capitalized, a life sentence. And then what was the second part again?
There are ways for you to become pain less for a life of more.
I love that. There are ways for you to become painless for a life of more. Ladies, write it down. Be your own magic. Put it on your mirror so that you can remember that. Jen, thank you so much. I know for everybody listening, and me included, they're probably thinking this is the work that I need in my life. So go check out Jen, check out our website, definitely take that gift. And I just really appreciate you being here for your honesty, your wisdom, your energy, and honestly, the way that you can use stories and metaphors to make this incredibly graspable. I don't know that that's a word
It is.
for all of us out here. It is now. It is now. Your work truly is such a powerful reminder that pain of any kind does not get to define our future if we don't
Yes.
let it. And so thank you. And thank you for those 3 tips. I love the just 3 simple steps of education and motion. And why can I never remember the P?
Powering down
Education
your nervous
and
system.
powering down your nervous system. I didn't expect to have 3 clear steps. And so thank you for providing that to myself as well as to our audience. If to my listeners, this episode resonated with you, please like and subscribe, share it with that woman or that person that you know needs to hear this message. Leave a review that helps this ripple out further to other women that need it. And just remember that you are not broken, you are not behind, and that pain is not a life sentence. So you can take that in control and live painless for a life of more. Until next time, please stay empowered, stay unstoppable, stay you, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Empowered and Unstoppable. If today's episode spoke to you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who needs a boost of empowerment. Are you ready to take your success to the next level? Visit www.meganbonnellcoaching.com. Remember, you're not just capable, you're unstoppable. See you next time.